an alien observer, an epic battle. Tyler's here. How about that? It's episode 415 of Fans Power, and it starts right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Tyler, you're here. We're talking season 2, episode The Arena, which is something that you made a point to mention that you are surprised that hasn't been talked about up until this point.
Yeah, has never
Never even covered it during the Doug days.
No, it was
Interesting.
and not an episode that I'm like I need to go back and rethink or anything like that. It's like, you know what? It's like it was one of those episodes I watched on VHS a lot and thankfully never thought about suggesting it prior to till now.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about because you were always the one when it came to suggesting episodes of this show that pretty much I think you have your top 30 easily that you could just run down the list.
Yeah, I could run the gamut and just but I've never even made it like a top 30. I've never even made like I think I've done like maybe like a top 5, but I've just never like wrote concrete. I think about it a lot just for my own personal amusement, but I've never like sat down and done like which I should, given that shitty top 10 release that came out many years ago that people didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
I remember you complaining about that a lot.
Yeah, it was a piece of shit. Fucking stupid. It's like everyone's just picking the episode they thought were silly and funny or what, or I don't know. It was completely skewed. A lot of morons.
Well, I was gonna ask this, but Papa in the chat beat me to it. Tyler, you have that VHS? You gotta have that VHS, right?
I have it on beta.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. It was on the Betrayal of Stratos and Other Adventures VHS, the one that I had transferred a while back, which is one of the hardest tapes to find. So it was the last episode of 5. So a Saturday was well spent watching all 5 of those episodes on that tape, and it climaxed with The Arena.
All right.
Yeah, The Arena.
Oh man, see, I forget the one thing I forgot to do. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, it's good to have you here. It's awesome to be talking some Master Universe on a Friday night. It's always fun to do these Friday shows with the weekend rolling in. I've been looking forward to this for a few days now because it's something we were toiling about. We decided, you know what, let's talk some He-Man. You picked the episode. I actually watched this episode twice. I watched it once on Monday and I watched it earlier today just to really I don't want to. I can't just sit here and spoil my thoughts.
That makes me excited because I told Nathan earlier this week, or he told me that he was really amped to do this, and I thought, oh man, that just intensified my desire to sit down and talk He-Man after all these months of like, I'm so eager and ready to do this.
Well, because you made mention of it as well that you and I have very rarely been able, like we haven't talked Master Universe, just the two of us. So we figured no spinner rack this time. We wouldn't discuss a movie. It's like, all right, the two of us will talk He-Man.
Yeah. And it's way overdue, just you and I, because even in our spare time, talking about He-Man was, I think reviewing the 2002 show as it was coming out, we would kind of give each
Mhm.
other our review over the phone, like what we thought, or on AOL Messenger or something
Yep,
like that.
yep.
That, and that was really about the extent of it. I think when you had a brief run of watching Filmation in order, I kept wanting to get reviews from you, and I think you made it to like the royal cousin. I'm like, that episode sucks.
Yeah, old
You
cousin
know,
Jeremy, huh?
yeah. But I wanted to go so much further, but for whatever reason, just didn't quite happen. But it's awesome to just have this moment where this is the focus. It's just you and I breaking down a classic He-Man episode
I
and
did
just digging deep into it.
I did get something in the mail today to tie this all together.
Granted, holy shit, dude! When did you decide to pull the trigger on her?
After I watched this episode, because I was like, I really need that classics figure.
Hmm.
I think it's essential to have her in my collection, and
Absolutely.
with it being the later, well, yeah, pretty much later end of Super 7 releases, most of the eBay listings are complete or in box, and the prices have skyrocketed. But I found it's just figure only, nothing else, $30. I'm like, yeah,
That's not too bad. I mean,
no, not at all. Compared to the other listings on there, yeah, I think I got away with that
it's
one.
so shocking to think that all of those are still asking. I think I can't a Skeletor classics mint in box. I think it was $100, which I thought pretty cheap. But then again, too, I haven't looked to what classics was going for, especially when vintage figures you can get from anywhere from 100 to 1,000.
Yeah.
But a good character, like a fan favorite, you can get for 150, 120, little over under $200, and like they're still asking this kind of prices for classics, like. But
Well, and I think too the with it being the Super 7 stuff, like that was mostly made to order.
it was, yeah.
So it just over time, all those prices are gonna increase. So it's while we're looking at Thundercats and Silverhawks to kind of fluctuating in their prices, being on sale or discount or whatever. It's like if you're gonna jump on that, do it now, because once that stuff's gone, then secondary market prices are
Yep.
gonna skyrocket.
And
So
it's a shame that Super 7 was not allowed to just continue and Mattel can go their own fucking way and do their lame bullshit.
yeah.
Like, why can't they just continue to license out He-Man to Super 7, even though they did a lot of silly, stupid, shitty things on the line, but still, it was like classics could still keep going if it was like 4 figures a year, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but that's a song and dance that has been discussed and
Yeah.
ad nauseum. But
Well, I think that's. I think after getting her, my class, I think I'm done with classics now, more or less.
because God, man, you just flipped the switch, man, and you just
I
nailed.
powered. I powered through that. Spent a lot of money.
Oh my God, yeah, that and the vintage line too. Like I say, you damn near got everybody in the vintage line too. On top of that,
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
yeah.
I think I'm still missing. I think I'm missing blast attack.
Did you get a Scareglow too? You did, didn't you?
Yeah, no, well, not an original. I just got the Origins one because I'm like
Oh,
that
that's
was like
right.
the cheapest option.
Yeah, that and Mosquito. Yeah, I don't think you got an
No,
original.
no, no, Mosquito is vintage.
Okay, you got him.
Yeah.
I think you got King. I always think about the last way because it's always the hardest to come by. Um, at least if you want to complete, and it's always been that way with that line.
Randor, no, not vintage. I think just Origins with him as well. Because I reached a point where I didn't want to spend I didn't want to spend an arm and a leg on these things anymore.
I get it. God, I think about back in the day when I thought spending $20-$30 was like, oh boy, this is a lot of allowance money.
Yeah.
You
Little did you know that action figures as a whole, depending on if you're buying certain things new, 50, $60. If you it's something that you missed out on, you're trying to reclaim or what have you, then yeah, you're spending a lot on that stuff. I probably should have kept a running count just how much money I spent obtaining classics. I really should have. That would have been interesting. Now, granted, Michael Purvis back in the day was getting rid of a good chunk of his, and he cut me really good deals on some of the core characters that were way more expensive on eBay. So I'm always thankful and appreciative. That was kind of the biggest catalyst, I think. Well, once I got the good deals on that stuff, and I really started bulking up. I'm like, all right, well, just gotta keep
Yeah,
going.
you get in that deep with a lot of the core cast. It's kind of hard to like, why stop now?
Yeah.
I think it just talking about it, how it makes me miss how much, or reminds me how much I miss reveals of quality figures. Like, oh boy, like in 6 months, I will own that particular character. Like just that anticipation of like thinking about what he'll look like on my shelf, or it was such a wonderful time, and yet people still bitched and complain. Of course, they do that about everything, but
Yeah.
um, at least the figures were quality. Like it was always exciting because the Horseman always delivered. It was so much fun. Looking forward to all those reveals. And
I think the spirit of that still lives on with the Mythic Legion stuff, even though I'm not really that much into it. I've seen some of the things. I'm like, that's really badass, but it's not something. But the spirit's still there, and people get excited for those,
and they are great. But I'm like, fuck, God, man, like they are just, they want so much fuck. I remember back in the day, I think paying $40 I thought was an awful lot for a Mythic Legion's figure. Now I look at some of the prices, $70 and $80 just for a figure with a fuck ton of like little accessories.
And that aspect's not going to get any better either, because prices are just going to go up on figures, because they got
and because classifieds are steadily starting to go up. Like Big Bad's like charging like $27.99. Like
you can thank the tariffs for that one. But anyway, do you want to jump into the episode conversation, or would you want to discuss anything else before we dive into this?
No, I was just kind of winging it, whatever we came across He-Man related is fine, or we could just dive right into
that's up to you.
The arena.
You're the one that hasn't talked He-Man on a show for a hot minute, so I pass it on to you. Really, whatever you want to talk about.
I guess getting ready for this too. It's been nice to be excited to talk about He-Man for a change, and not feel the opposite.
Right.
It's was unavoidable, and it feels like at this point, like it feels good to it's snowballed throughout the week. Like I feel like the last couple of weeks I kept tinkering with the idea of like, do something. But I told Nathan, I was like, I don't want it to be a cookie cutter, run of the mill, ho hum. But I'm like, you know what? If it's something I've not discussed before, and it's a good topic, like we can make the best out of that period. If people who listen to us on Friday nights, like we crush fucking everything. Whether it's your cup of tea or not, but still, I like to think we constantly bring an A game of like in-depth discussion on a comic, a movie, a cartoon, a TV show, whatever it is. Like we're gonna just pick it apart in the most positive way and just discuss, pros and cons, and it be more detailed than you'll get on most other channels that just, here, click this, subscribe. I need the money.
Speaking of which, link is down below if you want to go to the Dump Bin, the former Beyond Retro channel. Go sub up there. That's where the spinner rack and everything is going to be held. We're going to have some other conversations, some tier lists. I mentioned before, we'll do some video game playing stuff on there. I want to make videos of me going out to flea markets and stuff and see if I can find anything.
I mean, he has told me in passing he is looking to start up a starting lineup collection.
Dude, I got plenty of that stuff. when I went to my parents' house, because I was like, Dad, I gotta dig out those little penny figures, and I gotta find some of my basketball jerseys, so when Tyler and I do a basketball discussion, I can wear a jersey too. And we're up there, we're digging through stuff. Dude, shit you not, an entire wall in the neighboring house that's pretty much just used for storage when my parents bought it, because they didn't want anyone else to live beside of them. That's basically the gist of that. An entire wall, just boxes stacked up maybe 4 or 5 high. Like I'm talking like a good 15, 18 feet. It's nothing but starting lineups. Dude.
Oh my god.
Nothing but baseball, basketball, football, a little bit of hockey in there. Do you remember the Stadium Series ones? It's like the bigger, so it's like a
Oh
bigger.
yeah. Yeah.
So they're in a pose. So it's like Ken Griffey in his home run pose, and then there's the Mariners Stadium like at his feet. Got a bunch of those. They came out with like the much like how GI Joe was doing the Hall of Fame figures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starting lineup did the same thing.
I
It's like,
remember those. Yeah.
yeah, here's doll size. Here's a doll size Joe Montana or whatever. I got so much of that stuff. Dennis Rodman, I think it was the 96 line ways with the Bulls.
Yeah, multiple hair colors.
There were 3, I believe. It was like green, red, and
Orange.
Something maybe.
Yeah, but it was 3. I remember green and red were 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went to LT's, and he's like, yeah, got this fresh batch in, got all 3 of them right here. You want them? I was like, yeah.
God,
so many starting
lineups. I was gonna tell you too, like when we were gonna do 7 Little Superheroes, I that VHS tape was purchased at LT's.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because that was the only reason we went there, and it was once in a blue moon because driving to Pulaski seemed like it was not like driving to Roanoke, but it was still out of the way and not something you can do all the time.
Yeah.
So to go to LT's on a couple of occasions was to get comics or trading cards of superheroes was a big deal, and he did sell a couple of those. I think it's called Gold Star VHS, and it was just single episodes of Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends, or just Spider-Man. Yeah.
I hope Larry's doing all right, and hope he's still kicking.
I didn't even know he was around, so I would love to just say thank you for providing some great memories.
I think he stuck around for a while because I remember his daughter was still going to high school and stuff around here. So I mean, he might still be somewhere. He used to go to the flea markets in the area a lot. He used to have a booth, and then he didn't anymore. Anyway, shouts out to Larry. He's not going to see this, but your shop kicked ass. But anyway, we will go ahead and we will move on here. Bam. What would you like to say before we really start cycling through this episode?
Warren Greenwood, he's one of those writers I don't know a whole lot of what he did in terms of contribution to the show. Like there's a lot of writers that always stick out. Douglas Booth, obviously, and the usual suspects: Larry DiTillio, Paul Dini, Robbie London, Douglas Booth. But Warren Greenwood, I know he's written a couple episodes, but they're ones that I can't place right off what others he's done. I don't know right off. I know he's worked on She-Ra as well, but he just doesn't have that kind of factor of like, okay, his episodes really always stuck out to me. So other than he wrote a very, very well-made episode that really, going back and rewatching it a few times this week, it just made me feel like this really should have been a 2-parter, because it's one of the most ambitious, well-developed stories that just feel like, what, this could have really been stretched out to 2 and not feel like it's been drawn way too out, because it's a lot to cover, a lot to introduce, and it's crammed into a 22-minute episode.
And not only that, I was thinking about this when I was watching it, and I will read James's review here at the end, but it almost doesn't feel like a Master Universe episode.
Yeah.
Which I really I appreciate that about that. With this being, so this is episode 81 overall. This kind of falls in line early-ish in season 2.
Before they really started getting really sloppy, this is one of the cream of the crop episodes of season 2.
I was actually that was going to be my next question. How far do we get into season 2 after this? Does it start to get sloppy, as you say?
There's a bunch of episodes that always come to mind, like Beauty and the Beast and Ancient Mirror Avatar, The Gambler, The Cold Zone, Toy Maker, like, and I'm not saying they're complete shit episodes. There's episodes that could have been a lot better, but just bad stories, bad characterization, bad voice acting choices, things like that. I almost feel like it's maybe heading towards the halfway mark. Not quite there yet. I couldn't. I'd have to look at the lineup of episodes, but even then, production as opposed to airing is different a lot of times. But Yeah, the first stretch of season two is pretty solid. It's got some duds in there, like just like season one does, but it got off to a really strong start and just fell victim to people feeling like we got to dumb this down because parents are accusing us of witchcraft and devil worship and all this other horse shit. So let's make the villains, let's castrate everybody and make sure that there's not even the slightest threat of action adventure hashtag violence at all in any of these episodes at all. And it's just because I feel like Skeletor and He-Man's fight kind of has touches of that to a certain extent.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Because if this was done in season one, Skeletor's one-on-one battle with He-Man, I think, would have been a lot different.
Yeah.
His dialogue would have been a little bit different. It's not horrible, bad. It's not bad dialogue and not horrible dialogue, but I feel like it could have been a little bit more threatening had it been in season one, and it would have been.
Yeah.
But it's such a I mean, again, there's so much to unpack in it, and it's like, God, this really could have benefited in a two-parter because it's a shame, and I've never understood why Filmation didn't feel the need to do a whole lot of, or didn't do many two parts, just the one House Shakoti, and that was it,
Yeah. Well,
for He-Man.
I mean, do you think most of that is just worrying about? I don't want. I guess maybe kids' attention spans. Like maybe if it goes too long, maybe you run the risk of the kids getting bored by it.
Uh, I mean, I think, well, then again, too, I feel like um maybe they felt like that was not their goal, because I felt like obviously with House Shakoti, the two part it's kind of done inadvertently. Like Larry wrote part two as the episode, but then it's like, you know what, this is really really good. Let's do a two-parter because of how good it was. Then he had to come up with the mask character and the whole backstory there. So it was never. I think their mo was like single episodes, and that
Yeah.
that was it. We don't. That's not what their goal was. Um, and it would have been awesome to think because I feel like it's been discussed on a few occasions that certain episodes could have benefited good episodes or
Hmm.
episodes that maybe kind of missed the mark just a little bit because it needed a little bit more fleshing out. And knowing how many episodes they had done, like I mean, some ambitious ideas could have really benefited from like okay, well this is this is a solid enough idea. We'll devote two slots to this particular story, flesh it out, make sure it's wrapped up in two parts. You know, because a lot of good obviously they did really good at making one shot episodes that were tied up nice and neat at the end. You didn't feel like you were missing anything. I mean, God knows we've talked about those episodes at nauseum of why they were so fucking good. So, but this is just one I feel like with and then you have the introduction of General Tataran. Like those are just elements that just would have been so exciting to kind of see a little bit more of interaction with and Eternia before all shit, you know, all hell breaks loose, and then Skeletor's alliance with the goblins.
Right.
And it's because he only gets one more appearance and he's done,
Yeah.
General Tataran.
Okay.
But
That was going to be another question too, if he was more of a one-off or whatever.
yeah,
But
but he was a very well remembered character because of this, and obviously the very overrated problem with Power episode where he shows up in that, and we won't go into that, but.
well, let's get into the beginning here. We have Man at Arms. He's taken around, and it turns out he goes to Randor and Adam is like, look, hey, you remember when I sent this out there into space?
Yeah,
Oh,
the space probe out. It's been out in our solar system for about a year, and
we've made
well,
contact.
yeah, and obviously aliens have shown up on Eternity before, but this kind of feels like this is an alien that stops and sees this and wants to stop and communicate. It's not someone who just shows up randomly somewhere on the planet and then just starts a lot of shit. This is someone that clearly is like it's a being that is intellectual and curious, and that's what makes it stand out a little bit more as opposed to well, we've seen this before. Like you have, but you haven't.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So he's like, you need to communicate with him through this microphone here. And I kind of I love this shot because just as we have it here as a still, I mean, I know you're gonna roll your eyes, but just looking at it based off of this, you're like, okay, what song are they singing, Tyler?
Yeah, it's like they're doing. It's like maybe the Bee Gees. Since there's three of them. It's the Eternian version of Staying Alive.
All right, yeah, Bee Gees is a good choice.
Yeah, yeah. But I love the contrast. And like Adam is silent during all this.
Yeah,
He's just observing. Whereas Man at Arms is always about advancements and loves science, but he is more cautious. And even though it kind of makes you wonder too, how long had he been talking with Alm before he decides, you know what, I'm gonna let the king know about this. So the
right.
king is obviously all taken aback and awestruck, but very like welcoming, like, I want to know more about you. Come here. And I love Man at Arms' caution of
Yeah,
like, he's clearly an advanced alien. I don't know how quickly we want to just make it so easy for him to just welcome him to our planet, because he's clearly someone that, even what little Man at Arms knows about him is definitely feels like we need to be cautious about just being so welcoming. And I love that attention to detail. Whereas Randor is like, I understand that, but it's a risk that we must take, and in the pursuit of knowledge. Like I love that they are working together. It's not hastily, it's thought out, and it's just a
hmm
nice little tension that these two mainstays of the show are having this moment. And Adam slash He-Man is just kind of then, and a lot of this episode he is
yeah,
Adam and
absolutely.
He-Man are kind of on sidelined a bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we get a little more exposition and learn more about here, which I really like that. I
I
like how they talk about how oh yes, we're these how's it worded? You know this like the back of your hand. So how does he explain their race?
that they have shed like the actual life, like as we know it. Like they don't resemble a living form anymore. They are strictly like energy, just living energy, and just go around and observing. They're almost like a version of the Watcher, almost. And it's kind of like the purpose of what Alm plays in this. And John Irwin, I gotta, God bless him,
Mhm.
does a fantastic job of playing this alien being that's just a ball of glittering, shiny energy. And it's this little sequence of showing them going all over, and they visit the planet with the Schminovitz, yes, um, from Search for He or Quest for He-Man, excuse me, uh, where Plundor lives in Gleedle. And name of the planet escapes me at the moment there, because it's not a great episode, so I don't give a shit except the beginning of it.
yeah.
But it's just a nice little brief backstory on what his character is, and what he's about, and that he's just wants to go around from galaxy to galaxy, and that they've been around like probably before the beginnings of Eternia. Almost like it makes me think of like even before Preternia, during the age of the dinosaurs and King Hiss's initial run fighting hero. Like Alm was existing before then. As I always like to think about, even though that wasn't even a fart in the wind when this episode was made, that whole concept. But
Right.
I always like to kind of, connect all of the 80s mythology together, most of it at least, and just think that, you know, Alm was existing well before then, the earliest days of Eternia, when dinosaurs roamed the planet, and things like that, which is it's just fun and fascinating to think about.
Do you think there could be any potential tie-ins with him or it? And I'll say him because John Irwin.
Yeah.
It's a man's voice. I'll say him, but also it they whatever. Do you think there could be any ties with Zodak and
I've thought about that as well, because almost like you could almost think, and this is what I miss doing, is what we're doing right now,
yeah
is the theorizing, coming up with ideas, connecting the dots of things that were not meant to be connected, but and if you do it right, makes it an even more grandiose story, almost as if like the cosmic enforcers were created by this race.
yeah
It's like, okay, you know what? You know, we
it
need, they when they go
it's
ahead.
kind of like they go and observe and then send them out to restore the balance.
Yeah, and it's like they clearly have seen a lot and realize there's a lot of evil in all these galaxies. We need people to patrol, keep an eye that the way things don't get too out of control. And not like you're trying to make sure everyone's related to each other. Like the cosmic enforcers, And I don't want to think of it as like, they're like the Green Lantern Corps. Fuck no. I think His Majesty Scott and I like tried to make that kind of analogy. Fuck that.
Well, yeah,
But just a small group. It's not taking people from all over the galaxies and just, we're going to deputize you. Like a select few are just chosen to do this because they have a lot to oversee. And I'd like to think maybe Alm's race is essentially responsible for uh, putting that together and picking certain individuals to keep a watchful eye over making sure evil does not oversaturate a planet that is deemed to be relatively good.
yeah. And
You know,
episodes like that could be fun to explore if done properly.
absolutely. Like it's people. It's not about trying to reinvent. It's like that's what makes it so frustrating is people who are trying to create their own characters or reinvent backstories for characters when so much has been laid at our feet through Filmation, the mini comics, and Golden Books, and various other sources of media. That what you really could just build your own mythology and just connect all this stuff. You don't need to create anything else. I mean, unless you want to be an asshole,
Yeah.
because I feel like you don't need to do that. There's so many unanswered questions that you have plenty to work with, and yet everyone just feels like they got to be up their own ass about it. It just
Yeah. I mean,
and it's just frustrating because just
I know
talk
it
about
is.
this. And it's just like there's so much. We are just taking one episode that is never talked about, never celebrated, other than it's General Tataran's first appearance, and that's about the extent of it.
Hmm.
Um, you really could pull a lot from what we're just talking about right now and build even more and advance the mythology even further. And nothing has changed. You're just connecting the dots,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people are just
Yeah,
like,
you're absolutely right. But now it's like people want to connect it too much, and I get that. But Randor here is saying, well, we would love for you to come and observe. How quickly can you get here? Oh, I travel at the speed of light. Well, hey, you think you could slow down a little bit?
yeah,
He's like, yes, I can do that. And then Randor's like, that's really awesome. I
yeah.
don't know why. Just the increments that this is going through. It's
Well, I
kind
say
of
that's when it would been appropriate to have like the splatter noise. Ah.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
But then yes, Randor says, we'll prepare, for your arrival. Man at Arms, make the arrangements. This shot here, when we
this
transition to
panning
Snake Mountain,
shot, the panning shot, the shadow work that they have with them sitting by the fires and everything, fantastic.
it
I
is.
love that shot.
I even as a kid when this panning shot with music, and that's what people don't understand about Filmation with the library of music that Shuki Levy put together. That you can take music you've heard in a dozens of episodes, you play it in the right place, it is so perfect. It enhances that, and you forget. It's irrelevant that you've heard it because you know what, it works so well for this scene, and just this awesome shot of panning over to Snake Mountain, like what is this? Like there's this army of creatures outside Snake Mountain, and they're just amped out, and like what does that mean? And
Yeah,
it's just, and it just shows you like how vast it is because then you make the full shot and you get the fog surrounding the base of Snake Mountain right there.
yeah.
That
I just now kind of really noticed the fog because I was paying too much attention to the top of Snake Mountain. Yeah, I love the touch of the
that
fog.
that's something I wish was utilized a lot more. That atmosphere of like images of either warriors leaving Snake Mountain or He-Man and his allies, the heroic wars, like looking to break in and seeing the intense fog.
Yeah,
Like it's just very atmospheric, along with the rushing red blood falls out there. It's just that shot right there is just it's so it just puts ideas in my head of so many adventures you could have because of the environment. And here we are with we're in the middle of a council meeting between Skeletor's new ally, General Tataran, who's named after Tom Tataranowitz from the Filmation staff.
yeah. He's even got him a little chair there.
A little chair there, and that just going back and revisiting this too, like the concept of how Skeletor came to know General Tataran, and they live and dwell in the land of Mur. Obviously, Skeletor wouldn't seek them out if they were not pretty much the dominant group faction in that area. That they
Yeah,
are pretty much, I'd say, running the show, probably somewhere in the darkest realms of the dark hemisphere. I can't imagine there being anyone. This group would not exist in the light hemisphere, where heroic warriors in Grayskull reside. They would be a more threat over there. So that's why I kind of feel like, or maybe they're a new invading army from another planet, another galaxy,
Yeah.
and they come. I mean, it's just like looking at this lineup here. They're not; these guys are not name checked.
No.
Maybe they were in the script. I haven't bothered to check.
But I also love how the way that he's sitting in the chair and the way that he's postured, he definitely has kind of the upper hand in this negotiation. And if that goes awry, like he's got his muscle in the back, and then he's got his littler muscle to the side. But I love that he has this little entourage with him to go into. I'm kind of surprised that Skeletor would even allow such a thing. You would think that it would probably just be Tataran just by himself and no one else. That would sort of be his rules to set up this discussion that they're currently having.
Well, and that makes me think too that he doesn't like prior to what we're seeing right now. The idea that Skeletor makes contact with him. We don't know how. We don't know if he came to him in like a vision in the sky, if he sent Triclops and Trapjaw with a message.
Yeah.
Like I need you. I'm sending an invitation for you to make an alliance with Snake Mountain to pursue the claim to the throne of Eternia and the entire planet.
But also the other thing is, in my mind too, I'm thinking, well, how did Skeletor come to hear about how well he's been doing? Like
that's something I would. That's why I feel like it'd be nice to open up, like either with the introduction of Alm or with Snake Mountain. Skeletor's like on the hover screen with one or two evil warriors observing new events occurring on the dark hemisphere, and then hears about this goblin army that seems to be rising in power.
yeah,
Not that he sees them as a threat. He's like, this is an ally.
yeah,
Because something we have not seen in Filmation is Skeletor with an actual army at his disposal. He's had robot knights, of
yeah.
course, but an actual army, to coincide with his evil warriors, which he disperses from various missions as we see and don't see at times. And this is something I wish had become a staple in the mythology and with Filmation, is that this alliance doesn't go away. Because even though he shows up a problem with power, it's just kind of like, well, you're my ally for this episode, and there's no mention of the Goblin Army or anything like that.
Yeah.
But like this alliance is like solidifies that Skeletor is rising in power. Like he realizes that his team of various evil warriors he's assembled, it's great, not enough though. I need numbers to compete with the Royal Guard and the various other do-gooders, as Skeletor would call it, like on the planet. So he needs someone who's willing to work. His MO is like, I'm not out to fuck this guy over. I want to rule the planet, but I want him to rule as governor in my name.
Yeah.
And that knowing that he is paying his army in advance.
Yeah.
For their payment. Like it's not that's one of the things I like to see Skeletor doing. Like, look, he needs to do legitimate business. You're not going to get anywhere with your goal if you keep fucking people over.
Yeah. So the number there is 10,000 total. So it's 5 in advance and 5 after they've conquered. And I'm like, I don't know how much that equates to in terms of you being well off on Eternia, but I don't know. 10 grand in gold seems pretty solid.
For each individual member of the army.
Yeah, so each. And how many are in this Goblin army? We don't know.
But I just like, and it kind of makes you think too. I'm loving this so much right now, like just breaking it down to so much detail that I'm sure the writers like. How did you get all this from just this short episode?
It should have been a two-parter.
It should have been a two-parter. But it does solidify too, because people may wonder, why do these guys continue to keep working for Skeletor? Skeletor essentially rules the Dark Hemisphere. That half of the planet is pretty much under his rule, even though it's not a kingdom in essentially how Randall rules Eternia, like is through Eternos. But
would you look at it more of like a Hordak on Etheria kind of thing? That's probably how he's amassing the amount of money to keep doing
probably
the things
very similar. Like he is just gained control over that entire half of the planet very and there's so many things you could explore of what happens on the dark side of Eternia. It's never really explored. You just go to Snake Mountain and that's it.
Yeah.
There's an entire half of the planet with inhabitants that we never see. Obviously, they're no match for Skeletor, so it kind of makes you feel like, is Skeletor having a variety of operations that are help funding paying Too Bad, Triclops, Trapjaw, or some of them are strictly signing up just for the cause, or they, what, they have a vendetta to settle against a certain heroic warrior or something like that. He has to be able to pay these guys. So he's obviously doing quite well for himself for these guys to continue to keep working for them. And the fact that he's going to enlist an up and coming army to be part of his alliance. I just wish that would have been continued on more and more,
Yeah.
that they failed this attempt, as we will soon see. But you know what?
There needs to be another.
Yeah.
We don't get it here in this shot, but Ohm, you see him floating down, hovering above everybody. Well, it might actually.
And this shot too, like before, like it's another great panning shot of everyone in the royal palace. They're all out there quiet. It's not loud. It's not people cheering and talking. It's just this kind of like people don't know what to expect. There is a alien coming to visit of great importance, and how Man-at-Arms quietly is talking to him, and like I had to tell King Randor it was a good idea to have He-Man on hand. Like he doesn't want to stir a threat.
Yeah.
Like he's not doesn't want to let the rest of the residents know that, oh my God, like we're being invaded by an alien that could quite possibly wipe all of us out.
Yeah, and you have to think too that I'm sure a good portion of them are terrified,
and with good reason, because
absolutely, and you got to, and that's the other thing too. You talked about like the other half of the planet that never really got explored. I feel like this aspect of it, which I really appreciate, and we'll see this as we get further in the episode. I kind of like seeing more of just the regular people here. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? Kind of.
That was something that when I saw this as a kid, the later sequence when you see the villager with his two dogs barking outside, the village like out on the outskirts of the palace. Like I wish we had seen more of the peasant life. People that are even though they're within the vicinity of the royal palace, pretty much the protection of the royal palace. There are people that are quite under threat oftentimes, and well, I just I'm losing my train of thought.
No, well, yeah, we'll get to it there. So here's the shot where he drops down, and I mean, when you see how massive he is compared to just a human, like, yeah, I'd be shitting my pants.
Yeah, and when you see like the shot of him over the palace, like he is this right there, like that ain't just a small little meteor, like that is a large being, and then that just emphasizes the scale of like, oh my God, like you couldn't help but be captivated seeing that. And he introduces himself and says, "I'm here on for peace," and then immediately sees Orko and is attracted,
intrigued by him.
And that's something that like I'd like to think this whole sequence goes on for several hours before the Goblin Army and Skeletor show up and all hell breaks loose. That he gives Orko a chance to explain who he is, where he comes from, what the hell is all about. It may be a place he wants to go explore at some point. Maybe he has explored at some point. We don't know. But then obviously it transitions back and Randor's explaining what Castle Grayskull is. And then we cut to this sequence here of the villages on the outskirts. And I just love the design of these small like village huts. I just they look very cozy.
Yeah, but you can they look cozy, but you can also tell they're not obviously not living the best life.
No, they are the salt of the earth. And obviously that's something that I would have loved to have seen explored more. What these people, the hard lives these people live through, the threats that they're constantly under from Skeletor, various other forces on Eternia looking to, like at what point, like obviously Randor wants to protect all parts of Eternia, but at some point he can't monitor everything. He-Man can't be everywhere. So to kind of see the threat that this planet is living under all the time in the light hemisphere because of Skeletor and various other threats. from the dark side or incoming forces as well. But it's just nice to see that, you know what, they're the first ones to recognize, oh my God, they're that we're being invaded right now.
And Skeletor really happy about this. I like that shot too, where he's just standing
Yeah,
there. His
them
ship is
sitting in one of the Goblin flagships. This is just like a take of the interior of the Collector, but it works just fine for what the sequence is. And to see them standing side by side as equals, I like moments like that when Skeletor's not looking to constantly, dig into someone he wants to
yeah,
benefit him. Like it's like, it's just cool to see Tataran as someone that, Skeletor respects. And not because not all of his evil warriors he respected. A handful he did, but
yeah.
it's just cool seeing this image of them just in their moment of triumph. Like they just,
I appreciate the fact that there's also not any bit of dialogue from Skeletor to make you think that he's just looking to stab him in the back at any
yeah.
point. Yeah, it's like you said, he really respects his work and how far he's come and risen up, which is why he reached out to him to begin with. But yeah,
Which
it was
that just kind of makes you feel like too, like how um what a threat the Goblin Army must be in general.
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
what they've accomplished in the Dark Hemisphere or wherever the land of Mer may be on the planet. It clearly, if it's drawing Skeletor's attention, where I want to pay this man's army and I want him to work for me, like that's
Yeah,
something. It's just
yeah,
it's like, well, okay, what have these guys done to make Skeletor think? Oh, well, you know what? If I'm gonna make a big advancement in my goal, like I need to expand, and like these guys can like they're the mo. They fit what I'm after
yeah.
based on what they've done. Yeah, and then
And now shit's gonna hit the fan.
yeah, they the warning bell has been rung in the village, and they're telling, send the villagers in. And once they realize that, they're being attacked by this unknown army, this all nothing but music and images of the palace guard, the ramparts, everything's being set up, and it's just quiet with Chucky Libby's magnificent score playing to
Yeah,
set the tone of there's nothing except you hear the noises outside the palace of the goblin army getting set up, getting prepared, getting all of their weapons, their equipment, the robots, the ships. It's just like, oh my God, like we're setting up for a big fucking war right now. Like
yeah,
this attack we have yet to see to this scale.
yeah. And that's I can't imagine what this would have been like watching it as a kid, because watching it now, all the episodes that I've watched that we've discussed since I've been a part of this show, I going back to what I said at the beginning. I've never seen anything in this scale. The way that this is moving, it doesn't feel like a Master Universe episode to me at all. It feels bigger than that, if that's weird to say.
Oh no, it does feel bigger because we would obviously you see this all the time in the She-Ra show. But this is one of those times like, yeah, Graceful's been attacked. The palace has been attacked, but to actually emphasize a full-scale army with a variety of weapons, equipment, thunder lizards, which what the goblins are riding right here too. It adds a lot of scale
It
to
does.
this. Isn't just kind of a run of the mill of attack.
No,
That's why I feel like this could have really benefited from having a two-parter, like, and it ends with, you know,
I was
uh,
gonna ask where episode one would leave for the cliffhanger, and
before the attack goes underway.
so you probably stop it kind of around here at this point.
I think yeah, once they're set up and they
Which
see Alm in the sky.
oddly enough, this is about halfway through this episode.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and I think too, because then you could have really played up the introduction of Tataran too, interacting with King Rendor, Orko, Queen Marlena, and just having a moment of more curiosity and asking questions of what the planet is about. What tell me more about Castle Grayskull? And then like 'cause Stratos shows up. Stratos is the leader of the Avians, uh, avian warrior, excuse me. And like a brief introduction, like Stratos is the leader of the people of Abion, the bird people, like,
yeah,
everyone who is on the side of good, like we all are represented here in the royal palace. And it would be so much for Alm to take in, while the Goblin army is advancing on Eternia, maybe is because, I don't know if all these creatures are riding on foot or they're in these drop ships.
Right.
Because it's a variety, it's a what appears to be multiple goblin ships showing up. So it's almost like, are these big drop ships and the thunder lizards and the various things come out, or are they all on foot
Yeah.
and terrorizing parts of Eternia on their way from the Dark Hemisphere?
Yeah, absolutely. This shot here, Stratos, he's doing this. It's just the way this panned out.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna see him here because he does that. He sort of like, what? It's like what is that exactly? Is this something that he's used often in his appearances on the show?
He's had projectiles come out of his bare hands. He's, I think, a blaster on his wrist. It's just something for him to do because like freeze rays are used kind of.
It's a freeze ray, but it's yellow, and if I'm not,
it's like a yellow beam, almost like a big flashlight that just turns, people that it catches. But it's just nice to see that Ram and Stratus have been a lot of the go-tos for kind of your, we need to kind of flesh out the group a little bit. So if we're gonna have any heroic wars, it tends to be Stratus and Ramman, and they're just given a moment to shine. Like Ramman knocks the fuck out of like 3 incoming Goblin warriors. Stratus takes out another 3.
And then here, Randor takes out a guy who immediately surrenders.
Yeah, and I just wish they hadn't just reused the stock sequence from Prince Adam No More, where he's using Evelyn's wand to disarm a goblin. A goblin. You're just like, man, couldn't you just taken the time to add like a sword or something in his hand? And it's just like, no, we'll just reuse the same footage.
Kids are dumb. They won't care, Tyler.
I know. I get why they do it, but I just feel like when there's so many tweaks they could do, just use the same bit of animation. I'm fine with that. Just change the damn weapon. But that is the minor of minor nitpicks. And then they're ready to launch their robot walkers, which are these, quite large. Kind of makes me think of the AT-AT walkers in Empire Strikes Back, like a,
sort of
not in scale, but just like their purpose. Like they're way up there in height. They can attack things on the ground.
They can melt guns
and shoot things in the air as well. So it's not. It just kind of reminds me of that launch of like we have all-terrain robots that can cover higher ground and attack from above, along with their rocket pack warriors, and then you've got the thunder litters to attack. They come packing like the Goblin army. They're quite formidable with everything they're arriving with.
There's the melted gun. I do kind of want to go back to this though, because the design on this is okay, but I think the legs are way too.
They make them very easy to dismantle because of that.
Which I guess is the whole purpose. But I just from the standpoint, I'm like, man, I would have changed that
and
design.
Probably too, where they've come from, that was probably like cutting edge.
Yeah.
Whereas the Royal Palace, like you got Man-at-Arms creating new weapons and vehicles of all the time. So yeah, what Man-at-Arms comes with could probably easily take out whatever they come up with, because as we see in this fight, the Goblin ships are taking that with relative ease,
right?
But obviously, they have to be.
They have
episode. To be. It's not like it's just the way this episode has to wrap itself up as it continues on, and Orko even takes one of the thunder lizards and turns it into a very friendly.
It's like a
platypus-looking thing.
Yeah, it's salamander, I don't know, something.
Yeah. And which has the writer in absolute horror. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, and Orko surprised. It makes mention. Oh, hey, that actually worked. I was thinking that when you were talking about that. Oh, let's see. I was the Machines War of the Worlds. That's what kind of came to mind when I was.
And that's probably what it was more inspired by. I just when I think of the setup of the Battle of Hoth, when it's real quiet, when all the rebels are kind of getting set up, and you just see the AT-AT walkers in the background slowly coming. That's what it just made me think of. But it definitely come off like more of a War of the Worlds and Steven Spielberg's shitty version with giant vagina ships.
Tom Cruise, no, not Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
you can eat that other guy, not Tom though.
Yeah.
So almost had enough, and was like, I think even says enough
He
right?
said, "Just stop, stop! Like
Stop.
I can't allow this." And just freezing there was like, this violence, this war, like this unacceptable."
Like
And
everybody, including here He-Man and Skeletor.
yep. Now you could say it's like, okay, look, buddy, you're coming here to observe. This is the way things are on this planet. Either party could say, who are you to come in here and stop something that, what, this is our right. We are defending our planet. We're defending our kingdom. Like, for you to interfere with this, it's like you don't have a right to do that.
Hmm.
I mean, either one of them, either Skeletor or Randor, could easily say something. Well, now, obviously, their argument would not win,
Yeah.
but it's an argument that you can make towards Alm for his place. And it's like, I'm not arguing with how the story plays out because it's wonderful. But just for this being to come in and just deliberately interfere with people trying to protect their lives a lot in their home.
And not only that, but essentially, I'm gonna choose the best two champions from either side, and we're just gonna end this once and for all.
Yeah, and
I don't know
it's like,
that's I and
it's
on
very
one
egotistical. It's very
it,
narcissistic to think that, you know what, you're going to come in here and just play with the lives of this planet right now. Like, even though
it
you don't know
is
who's who,
it,
really.
it's true, it is, but I guess in their mind, it's I will bring peace here. But also,
Yeah,
you think about that too. No matter what side would win here, if we went that route with it, eventually something's gonna to break off from that, and then you're back where you are. History always finds a way of repeating itself.
it does, and that's something that, obviously Alm has experienced and has seen violence, in various other places. And maybe his mind, he feels like, you know what, I have brought peace to so many galaxies and planets, but like, you guys need to cut this shit out. But you come to Eternia, it doesn't really work here. And it's like, when you leave, this problem comes back tomorrow, and the
Yeah,
day after that, and the day after, and maybe not Skeletor and the Goblins, but Negator, the Horde, the Snake Men, Shakoti, if she ever gets risen up again. Like, the threats never stop on this planet, dude. Like, you can't just come in and assume your way of living works here. Yes, that's what we're aiming for, but unfortunately, we're not given much of a choice.
so
That would make a great bit of dialogue with him.
I mean it would, but also too, what would his response be to that then?
Probably just freeze him and just leave.
All right, fine. You're all frozen.
All right, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. I'm out of here. And
Yeah.
just freezes everybody and annihilates the planet himself just because he can do it.
Well, I guess that's the other aspect too. That once we finish with this and how this episode turns out, and he's like, "Okay, well, see ya," and he leaves. You ever think there's a point that they ever revisit, or I mean, is it just like that for them everywhere they go? It's just a one and done. I'm here to observe. I'm here to choose and obliterate. Because I think up until this point, it seems like doing it this way and just having a fight between the two, obliterating one side entirely, has worked so far until he's gotten here, and with He-Man talking sense into him, being when it comes to the part which well, let's get to that point. So
Okay.
He-Man and Skeletor have been
They're
chosen,
selected as the champions.
and now they must fight. We don't have the shot here, but I love when they first land. It's like that big, like, wide overhead shot, and you just see like just the barrenness of it. I think we got like the
and He-Man's like still sitting down.
Yeah,
because he's been pulled from the Wind Raider, and the far shot is like you see the silhouette of He-Man get up, what with Alm hovering over Skeletor and him, and I just love the fact that in that moment, like, there's no dialogue.
No,
like,
and going back to the music part, that's I really noticed the music right there when they're both brought there, and how they're both coming to and starting to realize what's about to happen. Yeah, I love the music right there.
And that Skeletor too is like, he clearly realizes there's no fucking way I'm going to attempt to run my mouth or threaten this alien being that has just annihilated my attack at a whim, like
Yeah.
just froze everybody, not just us, but the heroic wars and everyone at the royal palace. For me to sit there and even contemplate trying to negotiate or talk to, like, okay, I'm going to do what the fuck this thing is telling me to do. So all I got to do is prove that I'm better than He-Man. If I beat him, then you know what? We will lay claim to the throne, and because at this point he doesn't know what Skeletor's. It could be that Skeletor's like, you. This is my kingdom. You stole it from me, Randor. We're not given that kind of opportunity, but Skeletor clearly could say that to this being because he doesn't know what good and evil looks like on this planet.
Right. Yeah, he just picks the best two and is like,
Yeah.
here you go. He brings his tree to life. That doesn't work out so well. So now we're getting to the part that you're talking about, that a few of these things seem like they're very much what's in store to come later for the rest of the season because the issues that they were having.
Yeah,
with the
because the
parents and everything.
threats kind of like it should have started with the snake, because I feel like that image of Skeletor creating a rather large snake to coil around He-Man. And I love He-Man's response. I fought your snakes before, Skeletor, and just hurls it around and turns into a log. But I love that immediate threat of Skeletor and his association with snakes. Like I thought that was great. That I think that's what should have started the fight.
Yeah.
You know, but obviously it's limited with what they could do, and it can't go too hardcore with Skeletor's threats. Even though He-Man's going to beat all of them, he has to. It just would be great that the threats seem to be getting more greater as opposed to they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Do you think this is the worst one?
I don't. I think had we seen one of them strike He-Man maybe in the leg and kind of make him drop to one knee, like it stuns him enough for okay, one is like like numbing one of He-Man's legs where he drops to a knee and struggles to get up. So now he's got to avoid hitting the other three.
Right.
Like if they just shown a sample of what Skeletor's version of Powerball really does, okay, that intensifies the threat. So then, okay, something that seems like a kind of generic magic trick is, like he says, if they touch you, it's going to be very unpleasant. I think we should have seen a sample of like what one would have done to He-Man. Okay, he's selling it. Like He-Man's got an affected like thigh, calf, maybe an arm, something that makes his battles with these up and coming threats a little bit more harder because he's still struggling to
Yeah.
respond or recover from what one of those power balls did to him.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you on that because I thought they were a little goofy, and just the hand gesture that he did when they appeared too. I'm like, oh, okay.
I get what you're saying with that, but
Yeah.
as a kid, I thought that was an impressive bit of animation. Because any of the really fast paced like fluid motions, like whether they're running or swinging a sword or something, like always was very impressive to me as a kid. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. What about this creature
The
here?
bubblegum monster. There have been some great like Leviathans like type creatures that have like I always think of like the sand monster that Mask creates in House of Party Part One. It's massive, it looks very threatening, and even though it's just made out of sand, it just collapses down on He-Man, and it makes it look like He-Man's just been buried underneath tons and tons of sand. Not so easy to just jump right out of immediately, but coloring it pink, it makes it look less threatening.
Yeah.
I think if it had been colored like, maybe like a slime green or something like that, um, and again, it's probably just done to make it look a little bit more lighthearted. The sequence with the snake, I think that could have been done even more. Like it had the snake like striking a few times before it decides to coil all around
Yeah.
He-Man.
I
You
agree.
know,
That that's kind of the only issue is it's a lot of things that he's throwing at He-Man, but there's little tweaks you could have made to make them last a little bit longer,
yeah,
look a little bit cooler too.
that's why you benefit from a two-parter.
Yeah,
Because then you could open up part two with a good 5-10 minutes of the goblin battle that stops, and they devote a good 5, maybe under 10 minutes of He-Man and Skeletor battling it out. These threats that Skeletor is conjuring up one after another are steadily weakening He-Man, which makes his decision to save Skeletor when he pisses off this large bug that even though he's weakened can't do a whole lot more. If Skeletor hadn't run out and got angry and stubborn about just trying to make this monster bigger and more vicious,
yeah,
it could have done He-Man in because He-Man gradually is succumbing to, because Skeletor's power is supposed to equal He-Man's strength.
Yeah.
That's why it's a constant equilibrium between the two. Um, or that's why they're equal. That's why I feel like it would have been great to play up the fact that He-Man is struggling to win this fight, and that he tips the scales by showing the act of kindness towards Skeletor, trying to, you know, save his life. And that's what Alm was like, okay, you know what? Doesn't matter how close Skeletor was here. That right there shows me you're fucked and you're gonna win. So
Well, let's talk about this creature here. So it's roughly the size at the beginning of like a teddy bear, and it jumps on He-Man's chest, and it's attacking him. He throws it off. Skeletor makes it bigger, but that doesn't work. He makes it bigger again, and then at this point he's getting irritated, and he's like, it's coming towards him. It's like, no, not me. Go to He-Man. But
yeah, because he starts firing blasts at him because he's pissed off. Like, attack He-Man, and then the bug just like doesn't see He-Man as the object of battle.
He's not a threat because He-Man's not doing anything to him. Like,
yeah,
Skeletor,
he's just trying to avoid it, and Skeletor becomes the threat and just chases him into this rock, kind of a. I don't know. It's just like, I don't want to say a rock quarry, but it's this grouping of large rocks for Skeletor to hide behind, and that's where the large bug kind of has him trapped.
How often would this happen? I mean, it's just the one instance, because I haven't watched all the episodes, but Skeletor's magic has a cap on it. Like, it just his magic runs out here. So does that happen before?
No, but it does make sense when
he's used so much in such a short amount of time.
That's why I kind of feel like, it makes sense that, they've kind of played that idea in a lot of like wizardry stories, that the more you use, the more it drains you. That's why that's why you're really good. You get it right the first time, So the simple fact that he is constantly coming up with threat after threat after threat, and it's not doing anything. That's why he hires all these guys to do his bidding for him,
Yeah. I'm kind of curious.
Channel stuff through the Havoc staff.
I'm kind of curious then of how long it takes for him to sort of replenish his magic power.
I'd say,
it's got to be. I would assume it would be a pretty short duration.
Well, you don't want to sit there and act like, that's something that could be explored with his origins with Hordak.
True.
Everything he learned came from Hordak. So I'm sure Hordak probably taught him, after, if you use this much, it may not take you that long to recover. But if you're completely drained, it may take you several days to regain your evil magical strength. To where you can go back out and create, conjure, whatever.
But I guess that kind of goes back to the points of how the episodes normally flow anyway. If he does X, Y, and Z, and it ultimately doesn't pan out, and then you would assume that days or weeks would pass before he attempts again, because maybe he does need that time to recharge everything, conjure up another plan, and just rest.
Well, especially too, because a lot of his stuff is schematics, it's planning, it's thinking, it's observing a lot, and then he has things built or created, and
shit takes time.
Yeah, and it's like, not everything revolves around him just casting spells and using black magic to get his way or whatever he's after. That's why he has a whole assembly of evil warriors and vehicles and creatures and things like that at his disposal. It's almost like he may not use it as much directly, unless it's like for a brief attack where the use of his Havoc staff or maybe a quick blast from his finger is more than enough to take care of any other
most things. Yes,
most things. Whereas this time it's like, I have to use everything I've got to take He-Man to. So that way I can just take a rite of passage right to the Royal Palace to claim the throne, and then Grayskull next.
Yeah, so it's kind of just his impatience.
Very much so. It's his
it usually bites him in the ass all the time anyway, being impatient.
But something he's not planned for. He is not like...
Yeah.
He wasn't planning to do this. His whole plan was to watch this new alliance just take over the Royal Palace.
Yeah, so instead of his normal planning out, his schematics, all the stuff you're talking about, the conjuring, getting things built, he's just... there you go. He's just plopped in here, and now he's like, da da da, come on, anything, da
Yeah.
da da, and it runs him out. I kind of
Yeah.
look at, I guess I kind of equate this too, because I've been playing some RPGs a lot recently. You look at it, you're using magic power, you keep casting the stuff, and gradually that number goes down. So you either need to take a potion or like go and rest to replenish everything. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah. There's a lot to it could be, but obviously too these threats. I don't mind the large, which I feel like the bug should have been created large to begin with, and the fact
Yeah,
that He-Man is dodging, jumping on top of it, it throws him off, and it's just not devouring or killing He-Man, and he just gets frustrated, pissed off, and just sends one too many blasts at the bug. It's like, you know what, fuck this, and goes after Skeletor. And then, that's when He-Man, decides to flip it over and save Skeletor in that moment. And I just feel like it could have been so much more intense, from the get-go, as opposed to, because you feel like it starts out this small bug to begin with. Like, you just sent this massive python around me. I just throw it off. Like this is
mhm.
just, it should have started big to begin with, because that it should show that Skeletor is spent because he created this massive monster from the get-go. This
Absolutely.
should do it.
Yeah.
You know I think it's this whole sequence could have worked so much better, even with what we got, if it just been tweaked a little bit here and there. But had it been done in season one, I think Skeletor probably would have conjured a couple of random demons,
Yeah.
to just do battle with He-Man, going fisticuffs, or they're flying demons, and he's got to take all those out, and that doesn't work, so he's got to conjure, something else, and
I think if he conjured multiple bigger things, and that really packs the punch. If he's just that's yeah.
yeah.
If we're
I mean, if he wanted to, he could have like assembled like this gauntlet, like because Skeletor, like regardless of how we may be portrayed in certain episodes, he is extremely intelligent. His first gauntlet could have been like, all right, I'm going to assemble 6 evil warriors right here on the spot. Just they emerge right here: Triclops, Beastman, Trapjaw, Merman, Clawful, and Cobra Khan. Immediately right here on the spot. They all, charge at He-Man, like they're just commanded right there on the spot. He-Man takes them all out. Okay, there's one. You know, Throwing the Powerball weakens He-Man there. Okay, he's
yeah.
still going. Then you throw in a very deadly, large, poisonous snake. You know, it weakens him in because it's wrapped around him. He's already struggling enough as it is, but he managed to get out of it after it's been trying to squeeze the life out of him. That's number three, or is that two? The three, because Powerball.
Number two.
Number two, number one.
And then
And then you
then
create
number
the
four is
large
the
bug.
Yappa Pie strap match.
Yeah, but then you create the large bug. Okay, this is it. You're taking
Yeah.
out my evil warriors.
I
You
I
managed to
think
get to
I
power.
think it needs to be 3 or 4 for a gauntlet. I think once you go past that, it's too much stuff.
I agree.
I
So,
think maybe even 3. I think the third maybe needs to be the final thing
well, then
potentially.
I say get rid of the tree, get rid of the bubblegum monster.
Oh, absolutely.
Start maybe with a couple of evil warriors that He-Man takes out with ease.
Then
You
do the
know,
power balls.
the Powerball and then the snake, or either skip the snake. The Powerball weakens him, and Skeletor's like, all right, you know what?
Let's do 4 because I think it used evil warriors and then the power ball, then do the snake and then bigger something grandiose.
Yeah, like the bug emerges like immediately, like life threatening. Like there's no question. Like, oh my, He-Man's weakened already. He's out of breath. He's he's just been wasted. Fighting the big snake too. The Powerball is struggling. So to take all of his strength and try and flip that bug over on its back, and to see
Mhm.
it kind of maybe drop to a knee right in front of Skeletor. Like if Skeletor hadn't been spent, he could have seen He-Man drop to his knees right in front of him and give him the death blow right there.
Yeah.
But Alm's observing all of that, and like, all right, you know what? I've seen enough. That I was hoping you're going to save that shot, dude. That as a kid, I was like, that is so fucking cool.
This isn't me saving it. This is just me going in increments on the
Well,
actual.
it worked. I was just hoping though. Like I even
Yeah.
came close, like screenshots. Like, okay, we need to at least show this. Like this is the shot that's been used before in the series, but I had never seen that shot before as a kid when I saw this episode. So that shot of Skeletor looking up and then throw the shadows
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. There's
God,
something about
it's
there's something about anytime you get just good shadow work in animation that
and adds like Skeletor's like mass right there. Like that
it
is a very
does.
imposing shot. Like he's very broad shouldered. You know, it's very easy to kind of think that everyone kind of looks the same, but when you see that shot of Skeletor, he looks like nah, he's definitely a very formidable physically to He-Man as well. You know, very imposing.
Yeah. There's also the shot, not only this, but there's also the shot of him and He-Man, which is used for the thumbnail for the
Yeah,
arena upload that's on YouTube.
which
Wait,
in that moment, that's when Alm asked He-Man, "Why did you save him?"
yeah,
And that's when He-Man, like he said before, it's like I believe in the sanctity of all life. Like even though Skeletor's my enemy, I still believe in saving lives.
yeah.
You know, and is like that's all Alm needs to hear and tell Skeletor like leave and Skeletor just for a second like but like enough like Skeletor that's it
Yeah,
there's no more back talk like he's
yeah,
like all right we're done
yeah.
you
Everyone
know
has become unfrozen, and then you see here the army starts to
just
gradually
vanish. Yep, fade
vanish.
away back to Snake Mountain, back to the land of Myrrh.
Yep,
Kind of hard to say,
yep. Tila Man at
but
Arms have come to.
and that he's wiped the memory of what just happened.
Yeah, which is smart. That's probably something that most of those guys probably don't want to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe it makes mom look better. Like, you know what? I did come in here and fuck with their lives.
Yeah, so
But
that's the other aspect too of it too. I guess when we're going back, that no matter what, memories are going to be wiped. So you got to think about that in that regard too. Potentially, if up until this point we're wiping out whatever side lost, but then whatever side wins, we're just going to wipe their memory so they have no memory of this happening. Goes back to the point that yeah, you're just destined for that to just recreate itself after a period of
yeah.
time
And
too.
obviously I get why he's doing it. Like he doesn't want people to remember like being under threat, having these emotions of like, oh my God, are we gonna die?
Or or maybe the memory wiping was just used in this instance because everyone was
Well, maybe
still
because
around.
he actually had to get involved, which may be something he
Maybe
doesn't
that
do a
yeah
whole
yeah
lot.
yeah yeah maybe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to think about there because maybe this is the first time that he really had to get involved and be like, all right, you and you, let's figure this out. Maybe the other time it's like, oh, this is okay. On my way, I guess.
Yeah.
Either or. He's either very destructive or just very passive this whole
That,
time up
that's why I
until
feel
this
like
point.
that a lot could be explored about this character because you know what? There could be other planets that, you know what, evil may have triumphed and
Hmm.
he decides to let them have a pass and leaves that planet under the role of, a tyrant that is all about destruction.
Yeah,
Can you imagine if he came across Etheria and he sees the Horde battling the rebels?
that would be fun.
The Horde are fucked, you know? He
Maybe.
would,
You
well,
never know.
no, because I mean, there's just no way. Like, if he were to observe any battle going on with the rebellion and the Horde,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously sense the presence of, you know, if Hordak it happens to be around, he may not be. Maybe it's Katra or Grizzlor.
Mm.
Whoever's in that battle, and he
Yeah.
realized, okay, you're the most powerful on this side. You're the most powerful. I'm going to put you two together, and we're
Yeah.
going to sell this. And but if Hordak happened to be there, and he were to, or even if he just observed,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe he observes that this is the ruling faction on this planet, and sees these rebels are fighting the people who rule this planet. That would he immediately observe and think that the Horde are in the right, and that Shira and the rebels are in the wrong? Because he's never been to it, he doesn't know. He does,
That's that's true. It's very
he has to listen to their side. Like he would have to
shrouded in
stop
mystery.
and listen. Yeah, he'd have to listen to what Adora slash Shira would have
But
to
then that
say.
just turns into who's the better bullshitter, and because I don't, we don't know if he's any good at discerning what is truth and what's a lie.
Well, I mean, it would only work as if he observed the fright zone first, and like board science picked up, an invading alien species that's coming towards the planet. Hordak
I,
wants to know what
I,
maybe we can use it as a weapon. and then realizes like, okay, this guy just wants to know what I'm about and what our plan then he can take that opportunity as it like he has duped Huntara and various others into thinking that what he does is for the good of the planet. That the taxes and tariffs he
Mhm.
puts on the rebels is like, we're trying to run this planet efficiently and keep people safe, and people don't want to pay for that protection.
Yeah,
So
man.
then you would really have to have
That's
Shira rise to the occasion and say, look, I know why you're doing this. I understand it and I appreciate that. But I want you to know everything this man has said is bullshit.
I that's kind of a scary thought that
Yeah.
Alm shows up depending on what's happening in the scenario that he is observing, then this could go really poorly.
It could go really, really bad or really, really good. You know, I have to use the bathroom break real quick before we finish this episode.
All right, I'll look here in the chat for
Okay.
a couple of things while you go and do that.
All right.
Papa Hood saying here, definitely going to watch this episode after the show. You should, because we'll give our rating after this. I'll read James's review. Some of the figure stuff you guys are saying here. Brian saying that he missed out on the Mondo Goddess. I was actually considering. I don't know if we'll go through with it, but I was considering maybe selling my Mondo Master Universe stuff. Most of it. I think I will probably keep the He-Man and maybe the Scareglow, because Scareglow I was really proud of how I somehow managed to get that. I guess this would have been the second release, because they released Scareglow the first time, and that's when they were still figuring out what they were doing with the line. And then they came out with one that was more vintage toy classics toy accurate, and that's the one that I nabbed. But I have Hordak, Merman, Man at Arms. I have Faker. So I don't know. Part of me was thinking about selling them just because they haven't been on display in a while. They're just sitting in the box, and I don't really have much of an attachment to them like I do obtaining the classics and even the vintage stuff. So something to kind of to noodle about. What else do we have here? Who is buying the Origins Hero figure? I'm not, because at this point I think most of you know how I and Tyler feel about the Origins line. I just don't. There's not, other than maybe get like I did with Scareglow and Randor, getting Origins for those just because I don't want to pay the price for vintage. Something to go there. All right, Tyler's back. I don't have to stall for time anymore.
Feel much better. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So of course we get our ending here in the palace. Randor and the queen are sitting there, and Orko. I do appreciate this with Orko saying like, yeah, you know what, I could have
kicked his ass. Skeletor. I'd have cracked his skull right here. Let me show you. Just a fun loving moment.
Yeah. Because you kind of, I guess, at this point have to end it on something like that. But just then we get our
and you got more of the story of showing, emphasizing that the battle was won by He-Man showing a single act of compassion.
Do you want me to just read the actual thing?
I'm sure James is probably shitting on this episode and saying it's really not as good as Promise, but it's okay.
Well, Man at Arms says today we saw a terrible conflict between two opposing forces, and in the end, the battle was not won by some powerful weapon. It was won by a simple act of compassion. Compassion means caring for others, wanting to help them. Fighting is often not the way to settle a problem. It may prove who is stronger, but it doesn't prove who is right. And remember, sometimes it takes more courage not to fight. See you soon.
Which is reminiscent of the moral in Return of Granomir. And that was always one of my favorites when He-Man says, "It often, if someone calls you a chicken or a coward, don't let it bother you. It often takes more courage not to." That's why He-Man's the greatest hero of all time.
I think I broke your audio when I put the moving pictures back up.
Wait, I lost your sound there.
See, I lost your sound when I brought that up. Am I back?
You're back now, yeah. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. I think it's where I played the moving background that
Oh,
for
okay.
whatever reason it messes with your stuff. So I guess I won't do that. That was a good experiment. So Tyler, we talked extensively about this episode. Out of 10, what do you give it?
I give it 8.5.
8.5. That
Yeah.
honestly, that seems a little low.
Really?
Go, yeah, I think for you and the way you were talking about
You
this
know what?
one and
I take it back. I'll go and give it a 9.5. 9.5. Yeah.
not well, no, let's go back to the 8.5. Because
No,
if you want,
no,
no,
because it's I've never, like I said, I damn near everything we talked about tonight was all like spur of the moment, but just
right.
as we're breaking it down. I had a few thoughts in my head, but this is an episode up until planning to do it. I always enjoyed it. It was a fun episode. I love the Goblin Army. I loved but it didn't stick with me as much as like Disappearing Dragons or House Shakoti, Downward Disappearance, Evelyn's Plot. Um, but it definitely, I think the more we talked about it tonight really just shows how underappreciated, undervalued this episode really is. Um, and yeah, I just think I give it the wrong rating. I think it deserves to be a 9 or damn near close to perfect, because even though it could have been tweaked here and there, it's still got a lot of good stuff, right? It had so much fucking potential to be even better than what we
Yeah,
got,
yeah.
you know, even without making, like big changes, like throwing in a couple of evil warriors for him in to fight and things like that. I think there's things that just obviously just don't have time to explore everything. So you know what? I make it a full 9, 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
It's not going to be Dragon's Gift or Evelyn's Plot, um, but I think had it been given a two-part, it could have been um,
One
almost
of
as
the
epic as.
one yeah, the crack the top 10.
Yeah, oh, easily. I think if it had been given the opportunity to explore just a lot of things that we talked about, giving things a little bit more time to be fleshed out, but it's not the fault of the episode. It's just, what, it's just what they had time to do. So,
I am gonna give it a 9 out of 10. It just the scale of it. It's breaking the mold. Kind of when you're watching these episodes, you kind of get into a similar pattern. This breaks this entirely. It does something different for the series, and I really really enjoyed this.
I'm thrilled because I was like, yeah, like with any episode I pick, like, I don't know if Nathan may not like this one or something like that. I often, because these are episodes I've watched since I was a kid. You're watching more now as an adult, and some of them
Yeah,
can be kind of like eye rolling to you, or to anyone else who's never watched it as much or at all, and they may like,
right.
that was gay, or something, dumbass like that. Who people just don't understand quality storytelling. They're just like,
Yeah.
you know,
I,
hey,
I
press,
just
press.
I guess the biggest takeaway from this is like there's part of me like fuck man, this would have worked really well in Shira.
Oh yeah, yeah,
This would have been awesome. But I love that, especially season two, because just looking more and more at that, I was like, oh, all right, this is episode 81. And I was like, okay, we're a good chunk into season two now. And just the thing that you would always talk about is yes, over time, season two gets pretty shitty.
hmm
And I was looking at that and I was like, that, to me, it was surprising that it was a season two episode. Because when I was
yeah,
watching it, I'm like, aside from the end and some of the creatures that were conjured up, it felt very, I mean, it was tonally very serious.
yeah, yeah,
And I love that He-Man doesn't have, no one really has a lot of dialogue. It's more about and him coming down, having this battle. Like a battle is a good chunk of that. And then getting into that, there's still not much dialogue. It's way more fighting and an extensive fight scene at that too. I think it's even mentioned in here that it is one of the longest ones in the series.
yeah. It is.
Yeah. Do you want me to read any of the trivia or anything? You want me to just read James's review?
We can read some of the trivia and then conclude it with the Reverend's take on it.
Of course, we mentioned earlier that is voiced by John Irwin, which is great, and you can tell immediately, like, all right, it's John Irwin, because it's got that distinctive John Irwin voice. It's not masked like he did with some of the other characters throughout the series. When Warren Greenwood wrote the script, he included the General Tataran, named, as you said, after Tom Taranowitz. That's
Taranowitz.
Taranowitz. This episode features some of the longest fight sequences the series has ever seen. This episode marks the final appearance of Stratos, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Ernie Schmidt, the director of this episode, was also an animator throughout his time on the series. So I guess they were like, here you go, have a crack at it.
Yeah.
Which is, I always like that on longer running shows, that they would take other people that would do certain things, like, hey, how would you feel? It was just directed. Well,
yeah, just give someone else a chance to do this. And this duo did a brilliant job with this.
Yeah, they really did. And as you said that Warren didn't write that much on the show.
I don't know how much, if he wrote much at all. Like I said, I feel like, even though there's other writers in season 1, 2 that I'm like, I just don't, they've written some episodes, like Michael Reeves, and you've got the guy who wrote that real shit episode, Ran of the Monster. We also wrote Curse the Special, Mark Zicree. So
Mark Zuckerberg.
No, yeah, it's him. But so I don't. If he wrote any further episodes, it probably was season 2. But like I said, the best ones of season 2, I feel like, have been covered for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there was any that had never been touched upon, but I think for the most part, yeah. I mean, there's the latter half of season 2. If Warren wrote any of those, they may have been good ideas. They just not executed very well.
I could see.
And I feel like that could be something too, because there's a lot of shitty episodes in season 2, and you know what? A lot of them could be, suitable for, like, this episode sucks balls. Like, what could be done to make it better? Like, is this salvageable or is it not salvageable? This is a bad idea to begin with. There's nothing to work with here.
Yeah. So it's essentially kind of take those bad episodes, do how we done here, go through the episode and talk about it extensively, and drop in the hints of this is what I do, this is what I do, and then overall come to the conclusion, is it salvageable?
Yeah. But there's some I'm like, I don't know. I don't make Nathan watch that.
Oh, come on. I'll watch anything.
I know you like to watch dog shit movies and stuff like that, but it's
you're getting there. You're getting there with time.
I know, but it helps with Michelle Bowers in it.
Well, I'll read James' review and we'll jump back into that. So,
okay,
your prediction is James shit all over this one.
Oh no, I'm saying he liked it, but he probably doesn't give it the credit it deserves. Like, it's suitable, it's best, but it's okay at best, but it's probably something like that. Just being a dick about it.
Well, James says, in its simplest premise, this warfare-heavy episode should get boring very quickly. However, thanks to a wonderful script and fantastic direction throughout, this episode quickly ascends to greatness. The war between the Eternians and the Goblins is directed with such pace that it is hard to believe that we are watching an episode of He-Man. It is amazing to think that the entirety of the second act involves He-Man fighting Skeletor, and yet it proves to be one of the best confrontations of the series. With this story, Warren Greenwood writes one of the most action-heavy scripts, laces it with great character writing, and successfully produces one of the best episodes of the series, Tyler. 9 out of 10 from James.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I loved when I read that review, because that entire time I was watching, I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel like He-Man at all to me. Maybe it's just because, too, that like He-Man wasn't present in it until like the back half.
Yeah, he's not the focal point of the story.
He's not
at any point.
Yeah,
there's not even a transformation sequence in the episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if you had to estimate, how many times do you think there wasn't a transformation sequence in an episode?
I mean, there are a few, and I think that, but
I
not
wish
many.
I would have looked this up beforehand. So I'd be like, all right,
Yeah,
Tyler, you're on the spot. How
yeah.
many were there?
I know it's not something that's not done that much, because that's part of the point that it takes up time and
Yeah.
space. So I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head because that's not one of those things that really just sticks out.
But also
Um,
too, the transformation sequence is kind of like the the money shot, right?
It is, and
For the
it's
show.
for even for like a shitty episode, like you still have to have that moment where Prince Adam realizes, okay, going down, I got to
Well,
transform.
because you've mentioned that before, right? Even as a kid, when watching certain episodes you think particularly good, when the transformation sequence happens, that's when you're kind of like, all right, I'm back into it, at least for
Yeah,
now. And then let's see how it plays out. It's a good way to hook you back in, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah.
it's needed, and in a really good episode, it just intensifies how awesome it is when you see that epic sequence that never gets old. I still get goosebumps, especially when you play it really, really loud.
And you're
You
working
know,
out at the
and I'm
time.
working out. I'm like, yeah, man,
And this
like.
day sucked. I'll live weights.
Yeah, I'm like, look at these veins,
Yeah.
assault relief math on my forearms, and
Yeah, you turn into Ultimate Warrior all of a sudden as promo. You're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
uh, here's a question from Parker Luck. What's that, Matt Bird? It says this creature seemed to remind me of the bug creature that eats Flash Gordon in the '80s live action movie. What are your thoughts there in that?
I remember the bug in the '80s movie that does that.
I'll try to look it up
Yeah, I can't place that right off.
because admittedly, I have it on Blu-ray. I've never watched the Flash Gordon live action movie.
Oh man, dude, yeah,
I know that that's probably something you and I can save for a discussion.
yeah, you got to cut that shit out, man. You got to make Emily sit down and watch it. Regardless of how bored she may look.
I mean, I know the Queen song that was on.
Oh yeah, a lot of hot girls in that movie too, man. Like, fuck.
I'm not getting immediate. I'll try a different search here. Maybe kind of like the remnants.
Unless it's like from the '80s Flash. What he did say the movie.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
80s live action movie.
Yeah, I don't remember that sequence, but I also don't have that movie memorized.
So we got it's like the wood beast. Kind of looks like a spider creature.
Would assume so.
Yeah, it looks more. Yeah, I guess I can kind of see the similarities. I need to find a good picture because there's just like monster wikis and stuff. Let me save this image. There we go. Let me do this. Kind of popped up. I kind of see the resemblance a little bit. I see what you're throwing down. There we go. You can kind of see it. It's a little more spider-like, but
yeah.
Which I guess that creature was spider-like as well. But
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So let's get back to that Michelle Bauer thing. What was that crap ass movie that you watched?
Demon War. Boy, what a delightful piece of shit that was.
Yeah, you sent me a couple of the video clips from that.
Man, I've never seen George Kennedy or any supposed leading man be as worthless as he's portrayed in that movie, dude.
Hey, don't you be talking about my dad like that.
But it was fun. It goes from a killer Bigfoot movie to an alien movie with zombies.
Oh okay.
Yeah, and yeah, Michelle Bauer her ass looks amazing in it, running around in a pink bikini.
Okay.
And time, like
I'm assuming she gets nude in it.
Oh man, her and her friend go out to I guess claim like a pot garden that they were her was out in the woods, and they go, "Well, it's not here," and she just shrugged and then just takes her shirt off and decides, "I'm gonna sunbathe." Like it's got to be an easier way than this. And yeah, her and her friend just like she's just laying there naked, and then Bigfoot just shows up and tears her friend's head off after he backhand slaps Michelle.
Oh boy!
And like one of the funniest slaps.
Is this on Blu-ray, DVD, or something? Or?
Yeah, I got it. It was like I thought it was like an actual like.
Oh, it's a bootleg, huh?
Yeah, it's set up as a bootleg because it has all these grindhouse features on it, like for trailers and stuff like that too. So,
Okay.
but it's it was a
What
very well made bootleg. So,
what was the name of this again?
Demon Warp. Yeah, and all three leading ladies like get naked in it. So the people who need that nude factor,
Okay,
like
yeah, all
it's
right, yeah. Yeah. I got it.
yeah.
I think I might have access to this, so I'll give it I'll try
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
shit,
and the
is it
hero Jack in him, boy, wait, he loves to just stare like blatantly at random stuff, and it's just really fucking weird and funny as hell.
Demon Warp was actually on Best of the Worst 6 years ago, so
Oh, how about that?
yeah. I'm sure Tom owns it somehow.
Oh, I have no
Uh
doubt he does. Yeah.
well, do you want to take any questions? You want to go ahead and
Sure.
just
We'll
wrap it
take
up?
take some questions. Yeah.
All right.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, you guys got a couple questions? Go ahead, toss them in the chat. We'll take a couple things. We'll go ahead and bounce out of here.
I gotta say, man, I'm quite fucking proud of what the conversation we just had on the arena, man.
Yeah,
That's how you have a fucking conversation about He-Man, people.
well, I was gonna say, like, I figure we just save that conversation for after the
No,
show.
I want to say it right now, man. We fucking crushed that, dude. I'm proud of that conversation.
Well, I guess Iron Studios. We got. I was just checking this out because I was
Oh,
about
the
to
Iron
ask.
Studios is in the chat and they want to ask us a question.
No, they're doing. They're coming out with a Daredevil Born Again statue, so that's cool.
Oh,
They're doing GI Joe now, so they got a Flint.
badass.
Yeah, Flint and a Storm Shadow. Kung
Yes.
Lao. There's Kung Lao.
They have more Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a Lobo. They got a Faker one now.
That's cool.
Yeah, I haven't. I've been watching my spending.
Me too. I haven't bought any figures or anything or movies in a pretty good while.
Oh man, Iron Studios is doing a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I have to tell my dad about that
Oh man.
because my mom's a big Snow White fan.
In regards, well, I know she's a Snow White fan, but is she eager to see this piece of shit movie that's out right now?
Is anybody? I don't think anybody
Yeah.
saw it.
Yeah.
I heard it bombed pretty hard.
Which Disney needs to keep having more bombs. That way, they're like, get their act together. Stop making dog shit. Go back to making quality movies, like you did decades ago.
You know, you did. You made movies.
But there's like an awkward I just the focus is on me here. Like in particular.
I clicked on this window because I was over here and I was hitting the back button. I clicked over here and hit back and it kicked me out of the thing. I was like, no.
Oh, okay, I'm like, why is the focus on me? Like, was I supposed to do something?
Parker, look, I think this is something eventually we're gonna get to, which is each your favorite episodes from each season of the Filmation series. Well, we'll let that one simmer because I think we need to hit because I think we should do something that's not top 10. I think we should kind of go above and beyond that. Just
how like they fucked up the best, like the top 10 episodes, because that was the top 5 from season 1, top 5 from season 2. I'll show you fuckers what top 5 top 5 is.
Oh man, do you have any other terrible movies that you're planning on watching? Any more Michelle Bauer?
I do have Assault of the Party Nerds Part 1 and 2 that finally came in. Those are both Michelle Bauer movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to just maybe go to IMDb and see if there's a way to contact her and just be like, hey, you want to come on this show?
Oh, I've looked. There's
nothing.
I have no. There's no like.
She doesn't have social media either.
Nope, she doesn't do social media. Which God bless her for that. But
yeah. But
and
she also
have had her on because I listened to some people like do interviews with her.
How do we get in contact with Michelle Bauer? I want to watch Tyler melt into his chair.
Yeah. She still looks pretty good too for
Yeah,
her age. She holds up rather well. She takes care of herself. She just doesn't wither away and die. She still looks pretty damn good.
I need to.
But God, yeah, watching her running around in Demon Warp, like, and then it put me in the mood to watch Nightmare Sisters again after that. So I put that in, and after like, gosh, she's so fucking hot in this movie.
Is there?
Even she's playing a fat girl, she's still pretty hot.
Is there any urge for you to go back and watch like Deadly Prey again or Samurai Cop?
Oh no, I wanted to go back and revisit that movie for a long time. I just never sat down and just done it because I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. That was a blast to watch.
Yeah.
You know,
It's good
that
stuff.
was like a shitty movie that was like, yeah, I want to revisit this movie. Samurai Cop was another one. Like, I like to revisit that movie because they're just so,
They're so great.
yeah, they really are. Yeah.
Yeah. Fetmon, would you guys cover some Filmation DC episodes sometime?
I've never watched any of them, but obviously I'm not opposed to it because Filmation,
You
you
know,
know,
I feel like I watched some of them as a kid, for sure. I'm kind of
I
surprised
don't
that
remember
you
seeing them on TV as a kid.
trying to remember what I'm trying to think of what channel I may have read, because I think I remember catching some of them at some point, but it wasn't a lot because they kind of it was a smattering of different eras and stuff. That was kind of like the weirdest thing for us growing up in the late '80s and early '90s is we got just the
It was a mishmash of
it was a
decades.
platter. Yeah, it was just like a buffet of all these different eras of
Yeah.
cartoons.
Which was good that we're still watching Looney Tunes and Tex Avery cartoons along with 80s cartoons, current 90s cartoons. So it was just and they were all great. Like
They were, but
yeah.
sometimes it would get confusing because you would have Batman as like, oh, here's some filmation stuff here, but then there's also like all the Hanna Barbera Scooby Doo stuff, and you're like, wait, and then you got the '60s series, then you got the '89 movie, and I'm like, there's a lot of Batmans, huh?
But had I been exposed to like more anime shows, I'd ate them up because
Yeah,
like more Batman the better as a kid, especially after that movie came out, like the live action and or the Adam West series on the Family Channel
yeah,
in 1989 and 9, and like, oh my god, like give me more, like I need more Batman. Then the anime series comes out, like, oh my
ah,
god, just
yeah.
I it's it's a shame I didn't see more of it, but I was so welcoming to damn near most cartoons as a kid. Very few where I was just. I remember the original Johnny Quest cartoon. I kind of turned my nose up at first, and then I started to sit down and actually watch it and enjoyed it.
I I was in a similar boat, but with it was like Rocky and Bullwinkle and all that stuff because
Oh, okay.
I always associated all those cartoons with being awake too early on a Saturday morning because I was sick.
I remember watching those on the weekdays, real early in the morning, like at 6:30, maybe
Yeah, six
7 in the
thirty.
morning,
Yep.
because getting up and either going to daycare or starting elementary school, getting up real early, having to go to the sitter's house. Little Rascals and Three Stooges would be on the earliest in the morning, and it was if I woke up early enough to catch Little Rascals was a big deal to me. So because they came on like at 5 in the morning, like I remember The Simpsons made a reference or a joke about that too, which I thought, "Hey, it's just like me." But then they would play, Looney Tunes would be on TNT like real early in the morning too.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course a lot of 80s cartoons were on. Turtles would come on in the morning before school.
So see, I never associated it because I didn't go to daycare or sitter because my
Uh,
mom was a stay at home mom until I was middle school aged, and then she went back out into the workforce. So any of those 6 a.m. cartoons I always associated with I've been up since 3 a.m. throwing up or something.
uh, that can get, and that would be when I would find some comfort after being sick. And it's like, even though you don't feel great, at least you have the comfort of watching cartoons and not having to, feel like you're rushed and you can't catch all of it, or at least you
Yeah.
can sit and watch the full hour of back-to-back episodes of Rocky and Bullwinkle or whatever it may be.
Speaking of comfort, I didn't appreciate it as much at the time, but I don't know why I thought about it today. I guess it's just where it's starting to get warmer in spring and everything's starting to blossom and all that stuff. It made me think about Saturday mornings and getting up because my parents wanted to go check out yard sales.
Hmm.
And I would be riding in the back seat. We'd have the windows down. It would be like good jams on K92 and it's just the fresh air, and it's
Fresh
the,
air, like
the like the
yeah,
early morning spring where it's got a good chill to the air
yeah,
still too, but like it's going to warm up and it's going to be a
yeah.
nice day, but there's just that freshness to the air. I was thinking about that randomly. It's like, yeah, it was like 1994 and I picked up this copy of Shaq Fu at this yard sale, and then we got home and I watched The Tick, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I miss stuff like that.
I think about like because I get that sensation of nostalgia when I smell and feel that particular kind of air as we get closer and closer to summer, and think about a lot of times like Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Obviously weekday mornings like walking to school. I would think about that a lot, but like Saturday mornings, like anxiously awaiting X-Men and Spider-Man to come on Saturday morning, and then knowing that once the morning lineup of cartoons is over, mom will decide, all right, we're gonna get showered and changed, and then we're gonna go to Christiansburg and go shopping, whether it be to go to Hills, the mall, Roses. We're gonna go do some shopping, maybe rent a movie or something like that too, or just it was just
Yeah.
and that there's something about that freshness in the air that I associate with those mornings,
Yeah. Same.
it's cool to know that you think that same way too. And what's oddly enough, we never went to yard sales, but we had yard sales, and I only remember going
That's
to one.
funny. That's funny. You guys never went out to them.
Nope, not once. The only time I remember really going to one was when we went to Pennsylvania and stayed with my granddaddy, and the neighbors across the street were having one, and I got my only Stratos was across the street.
How much
And
you
then
pay for it?
it was like a dollar or something like that, and
Yeah,
he
hell
had
yeah.
nothing, but it was like I never had Stratos, so it was a big deal. So then he took me to the local video store, and I rented The Greatest Adventures of All on
Because of
VHS.
that, you're like, yeah, I gotta.
I gotta get a He-Man fix too, so that's what we did. I'm like, this is great. This is, yeah,
That's
flea
awesome.
markets was another thing. Like that, we did go to a lot of flea markets, but yard
Yeah,
sales was just not
yeah.
that.
No, it's like yard sales and every Saturday, and then it builds up to, oh man, we're going to the flea market. But as a kid, admittedly, I didn't enjoy doing that stuff because I thought it was boring. And at the time, there wasn't really a lot of stuff that we were into that was there at those things. I mean, granted, it's hit or miss now, but the more prevalent of seeing, better chance of seeing that shit if you go to it now as opposed to back then.
Yeah, because back then, I mean, unless you were a kid who's strictly about the now, you're
Yeah,
gonna find stuff people don't want. Which, fortunately for me, I was still wanting toys people didn't want anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And that was my lot in life all through elementary school. So, but my mom just wasn't inclined to go get up Saturday mornings and go check out yard sales. She just wasn't really. It just wasn't her thing.
That's fair.
Just more about going shopping at Walmart, Kmart, Hills, Roses,
Yeah,
the mall.
yeah,
That
a
was.
little more convenient. You know what you're getting into when you
Yeah,
go.
it just being told in advance you can have an action figure, so don't ask for it.
Damn.
There, and that happened on several occasions. But if you're lucky, a pack of trading cards or a comic book. My mom had no problem with that.
Throwing the hammer down. It's like no action figures. Don't even ask.
Yeah,
Shit.
don't ask for a toy, or more. She said no toys. Okay, so that means which the only thing I'm after is an action figure. But when a comic book or a pack of trading cards, she didn't see it as like as bad.
Yeah.
Like getting an action figure, like that's the big one. Like you're whether it's GI Joe, He-Man, Turtles.
It's to her, it's kind of all the same.
Yeah,
Really.
but I'm like, okay, I'm still getting something, and a comic book and a pack of trading cards could bring so much joy to me today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it would,
Yeah.
but I like to remind her too about those times, like don't ask, or she say I doubt it, like oh
Hey,
God.
you remember when you tell me that all the time? I talked to Nathan. His parents never did that.
Yeah, well, I probably have said something like that to her before. Whereas my mom was a saint, though. Like
Yeah.
I look back at certain times I was told, no, you can't have that, and you know what? It sucked at the moment, but it helped create the person I am today. Of like searching this stuff out, and like, well, you know what, mom, you denied me 30 years ago, but here it is
And
today.
now I'm gonna pay way more for it. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I hope you're happy.
We
You know,
will end this episode not with a question, but with a comment. And this comes from
okay.
Rebel Wookie. Hey, I just stumbled into this. Gonna have to watch later. Good to see you, Tyler. Tyler, it's good to see you on here.
Thank you, bud, and I hope you enjoy pretty in-depth conversation on this episode tonight.
Yep.
So.
Well, and yeah, man, fuck. I hope everyone enjoyed this. If you haven't done so already, like this video, subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment down below. Go watch the episode. I didn't put a link.
It's on YouTube. There's multiple versions up to watch on YouTube.
Yeah. Go check the episode out. I didn't put it in the description, but just look up the arena and hopefully this will pop up towards the top of it.
Yeah, go watch that and then
come back and watch this again.
Yeah. watch it tonight or tomorrow morning. You're having breakfast, taking a shit, whatever it is.
Click on it a bunch of times, but definitely make sure if you haven't done so already, hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. Leave comments too. That also helps. And I guess until next time, have a powerful day.
How did I plan? How did I escape? With difficulty. How did I plan this moment? With pleasure.
This I should know. You even saying, I'm like, yeah, that sinks pretty deep in the old noggin. But
well, I don't think you'll probably get this because I know you've seen this movie, and I think you liked it, but I don't think it'd be a movie that probably.
It sounds really familiar, like really familiar, though.
All right, here's another line. What about your or where was your mercy? He's like, I'm a count, not a saint. Here's another line. This is one of my favorite lines in the movie. It's like, I don't believe in God. It doesn't matter. He believes in you.
Devil's Advocate?
No.
I don't know.
Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that twice. I think we watched it I think the first time I saw it was in high school. And then
because it came out when we were seeing it. I went and saw it in theaters.
Would the DVD or / VHS release have come out by the time that we graduated? Maybe.
Because I'm thinking I still have the DVD. Like I never did upgrade it. Just not out of like I just never saw it to buy. Of course, it's out of print now. People want like $50-$60 for it. Greedy bastards.
Yeah, no. So I guess I was wrong. It came out on DVD September 10th, 2002. At that point, we were not in high school, so I stand corrected. So I guess the only time I would have watched it then, or maybe I watched it twice, was on DVD and put it in my home. For some reason, I was thinking though, but maybe I'm just blending that in with all those the era of films. That's like Count of Monte Cristo, Knight's Tale, 13th Warrior, like all that stuff. Kind of, a couple others too. I know I watched The Patriot in high school. Mel Gibson.
Was that
not Steven Seagal? Mel Gibson.
Is that when Reese would just put that on?
And
look at personals.
No, that wasn't Reese. That was. You're gonna have to toss out some names. It was history. It was history class.
Was it Mr. Freeman?
No, it was a female teacher.
Well, I was gonna say that's how we met, was Mrs. Freeman's class. Remember, it was
maybe it was Mrs. Freeman, but
I remember watching that in her class though. Maybe we maybe we did watch it in that same class. But I remember we watched Shogun. No way, that was we met 10th grade history is when we met.
Was it?
Because I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that would have been 2000.
I was trying to think who was Miss Wigington was 11th grade and 12th grade was government. So it would have been 10th grade history, Miss Freeman's classes. Because we watched Shogun, like the Richard Chamberlain miniseries. We watched that.
I don't remember watching that.
Yeah, I remember him getting pissed on. That's all I remember. Yeah.
You just said, "What the hell are we doing here?"
Yeah. But I remember watching maybe a couple movies in there. But I remember there was that goof that just fell asleep in class. Only thing I can remember was like when the Magna Carta was signed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just this putz that just he gave up on life and he gave up on everything, and he just would fall asleep in class, and that was the only fact and she would ask him just out of fun because that's the only thing he could remember. And it was funny because he was just this idiot, just didn't care.
Yeah, I remember all the dumbasses in the classes that we had. We'll get into more with that after the show as we do.
Yeah, but hope everyone enjoyed themselves. Yeah. Thanks for giving us your time.
Yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Is this the worst you've ever had to go boom boom?
No. I shit my pants at the fair.